Sorry, that's just anti-trans.
I'll watch this first. So this is a gender-affirming care debate between Andrew Doyle and Robin Moira White, sorry. One of my videos that got algoed was on her. I think I called it something like another trans person fumbles a live TV debate or something, because she was extremely underwhelming. Just kind of dodging questions and rewording questions and answering them, and just the conversation went nowhere. It was a waste of time. This is referring to the WPATH files, which I have seen. I've looked at a bit of them, and I linked them on my Discord because I think it's important. I really don't like what I'm hearing about WPATH. I think they're putting their hand on the needle a hell of a lot, and probably have gotten quite greedy in that way, which is part of why this huge backlash is happening. But yeah, this is Robin Moira White versus Andrew Doyle. Let's have a look.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation with me, Andrew Doyle. This is our special on the WPATH files. Now, in preparation for this show, we have been attempting to secure interviews with medical...
So the WPATH files, from what I know, there was a kind of review of their practices. And then there was a huge amount of like conversations, like internal conversations on like their chat app or whatever. There's people like admitting to doing vaginoplasties on under 18s. There's all sorts of stuff in there. I haven't looked through a huge amount, but yeah, I'm not a fan of WPATH. I don't like what they're about.
Medical professionals who support gender-affirming care. We approached 33 different members of WPATH and invited them all to appear. All 33 either declined or did not get back to us at all.
That does not surprise me. It's rare, honestly, like this. Honestly, as much as, like I said, she was extremely underwhelming the one time I've seen her, this Robin Moira White, the fact she's even willing to have this conversation, assuming she's not here to just pull a Frida Wallace or some shit and do some stupid shit and have nothing to do with any actual conversation, then she deserves props for that, you know? I haven't had a debate with anyone like this, you know what I mean? But then I don't have the same beliefs as Robin Moira White from what I know, so...
However, I am delighted to say that barrister Robin Moira White, who does support gender affirmative care, has agreed to talk to me, and Robin joins me now. Robin.
I think that was a point that Helen Joyce made in that, was it IEA? The one with Frida Wallace getting drunk and talking about a cock. Yeah, like, she made a point about how none of the professionals and people from, like, orgs like WPATH would talk to anyone, hence ending up with Frida Wallace, you know, who's not a WPATH professional.
I do really appreciate you being here because it has been very difficult to get people to support gender-affirming care. I think it's very important that all sides of this debate are heard. And I know you can't speculate about what's going on in other people's minds, but why do you think it might be that so many medical professionals won't talk to me?
Well, your previous guest, Helen Joyce, described
WPATH is to doctors, trans doctors were ASLEF is to train drivers. Their main attitude towards trains is the same as ASLEF's. I actually am not familiar with ASLEF.
people as a terrible problem in a sane way.
It might be that so many medical professionals won't talk to me.
Well, your previous guest, Helen Joyce, described
Is he gonna... Is she... Sorry, it's so difficult to say she about someone that looks like this. I'm trying, okay? I'm really trying. I get tons of shit whenever one of my videos gets a few views. Every tiny slip up, it's like, oh my god, you misgendered someone. It's because I don't give a fuck. Anyway. I'm guessing she's gonna be like, well, you talk to this other person and you also talk to me, therefore you're bad, or something.
People as a terrible problem in a sane world. I think I've probably got that quote a word or two wrong. And I think there is a feeling that I've seen your guest list for this evening.
Train driver union.
I am the only person who's going to be speaking in this.
God, those are yellow. Yeah, so it's, oh, because you talk to bad people. Like, that's really cringe. Like, if they talk to people you disagree with, wouldn't you want to get on there, like, urgently and give your own side so that they're not just hearing the same thing? Because this is, like, reaffirming. Like, watching Andrew Doyle and, like, Helen Joyce talking would be extremely reaffirming for the average, like, gender critical. You'd think you'd want to, like, get in on stuff like this, which she has, to be fair. But I don't know. Like, it seems like there's a lot more to it as to why they don't talk to these kind of media sources than just, oh, it's because you talk to people they don't like. Because that's cringe as fuck.
This direction.
That's
Because surely they'd want to stick up for their practices unless there was stuff wrong with their practices, you know?
In your guest list for this evening, I am the only person who's going to be speaking in this direction.
right. That's right. And Robin, but in terms of the
Yeah,
invitation,
I wonder why like gender critical has like risen up and like trans people are getting into worse and worse repute, you know, when no one that believes in our shit apparently will even speak to anyone. And so these TV shows just end up with like stacked bills of people that are going to reaffirm like the gender critical thing.
there were more people invited from your side of the debate than from the other. It just so happens that you have accepted it. I will, by the way, put that to Helen
Oof. Yeah, there you go.
when I see her again later on.
And to be fair, I wavered in coming on because I'd seen the way this evening was advertised, and I am concerned that the debate about trans people is toxic and difficult for trans people to engage in.
Well,
So what's that got to do with WPATH? Difficult for trans people to engage in? Well, not really. I mean, it depends who you are. If you're not fazed about people saying stuff that's transphobic, then I don't know. But I don't know. There's not many people that can be described that way, I guess. I don't know. To me, it kind of seems like we have very little in the way of representation. 09BY, hi, hope you're doing well. Yeah, to me it seems like there's little in the way of like trans representation. There's not many good people out there that are actually making good points. The only ones I see on these things are like, they're either people like this who are much of nothing, or they're Frida Wallace or Felix Fern or whatever his name was, and they're just pulling stupid stunts and like getting TERFs, like asking TERFs their pronouns and dumb shit. I'm doing fine, how are you?
let's talk about it then from your perspective. Let's hear your view. You yourself have experienced gender affirmative care, and so you've had a very good experience. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, I struggled with my gender
Hi for the follow. Thank you for the follow. I can't remember what sound does what. Okay, that's Demon Mama.
since I was very young. I perhaps would have transitioned in my 20s, but I suffered horrible workplace discrimination that ended a career that...
Oh, so whenever anyone does pretty much anything, there's a gif of a deer humping another deer, and then it says that someone's following me. The gif plays for everything, so I don't know. That's what happens.
I loved.
You're enabling a deer and getting his fun times on.
And I had to go and find another one, which was law, and got to my early 40s and decided that either I had to transition or frankly jump off a cliff, and went through WPATH moderated treatment, so with appropriate psychological investigations, appropriate counselling, before there was any hint of prescription or any hint of surgery later. And I've been right through...
Yeah, the thing is, oh, thank you. When people make claims about people being rushed through transitions, then usually not talking about the UK. I think there's some accusations of that towards like the Tavistock clinic, but that's about it. For like the most part, people like this, like they are having to go through a lot of hoops.
Everything I've had done, I've been properly informed about, I've consented to properly. And there's an example...
I've had that similar experience, by the way. Like the gender clinic I went to were very open about the kind of risks and stuff. Like I knew what I was getting into, and that should be the way it is, you know. Woody Black. Oh, hey, hope you're doing well.
In the other direction, I'm an oral advocate. One of the types of surgery that's possible is surgery to vocal cords. And I went through, I thought seriously about that, but because I'm an oral advocate,
Vocal cords. I've heard of something to do with glotter something, but it really would make you sound weird. Glottoplasty. Yeah, because I think what that would do, it would make your voice higher, but it would also sound a lot more like this, I think. I think that's the case anyway. There's a few other things. This must be super rare, to be honest with you. I don't know of anyone that's had these kind of things done. But anyway.
It risks me ending up sounding like Minnie Mouse and a bit ridiculous. And obviously if I
Is that more ridiculous than some people are going to find having a male voice and looking female. I'm not sure. I mean, hey, I don't know. She's taken the fairly normal route, I guess, in that sense.
It was like that in court for a day. You wouldn't be listening to what I was saying. You'd be listening to that. And I took an informed choice not to have that surgery.
And you have some reservations,
Or voice train, apparently. That's a joke. That's a joke.
don't you, about the content of the WPATH files?
Well, firstly, the video are people having a discussion. They're not, as I understand it, it's in no sense an official position from WPATH.
Yes, that's a point I made earlier.
Oh, they're talking about a video that I'm not going to be able to see. That's nice. No links. Okay, well, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this section then.
Yes.
And I have some significant problems with the report that's been written. There's an American trans journalist called Erin Reed who's looked at the report.
Oh, Erin Reed is full of shit, and this person's going to back her up, I'm guessing. Like, the kind of shit that Erin Reed was coming out with about the cast report and stuff, like, I still need to look more into her stuff. I haven't yet, but every time I see, like, these, like, bread tube types and stuff, they don't even have to be trans. They all use Erin Reed as a source. Like, I watched that Luxander video, like, crowing about some supposedly affirming, what's the word? Like, affirming study that suggested that the regret rates were low or something. Because that's what we do. We get studies that sound good for us, and then we just plop them down. There we go, trump card. We win, and it never happens. But yeah, she's always the source, and she is not to be trusted.
And has hundreds of criticisms of the report. And I suspect you ought to make some attempt to have.
Well, yeah, but like, it's all very well saying hundreds of criticisms, but what are they? It's the same as the thing I was looking at to begin with, the anti-trans bills. It's all very well saying there's been 600 bills brought up this year. That's a lot, yeah, I agree. It doesn't sound very good. But a lot of them aren't going through. Of the ones that haven't gone through yet, some of them, I don't even know if I'd consider anti-trans. Like, it's a real mixture of stuff. Like, there's some stuff that sounds bad to me, and a lot of stuff that either I agree with, or it really doesn't seem like it's changing anything. Or it's, you know, it seems discriminatory, but, you know, to do with the military, which already discriminates on so many different grounds, you know?
Her here to discuss that.
Erin was invited.
Yeah, she wouldn't have said yes. These people don't talk to people that aren't in the in-group. That's how it works.
To appear today.
Well, indeed. So let's take, and I gave you one.
I mean, I only looked at a bit of the WPATH thing. I have it linked in my Discord. I'll put another link up at some point. But yeah, I was seeing like messages, like people saying that they'd talking about vaginoplasties that they'd done on like under 18s and stuff. Like, it wasn't good stuff, you know. And the model they're pushing is I don't know. It seems extremely captured.
Example in advance of speaking. So the report talks about the level of detransitioners, and I know you're going to be talking to a detransitioner.
Detransition. What I find with that is, I think that the gender, you know, that these kinds of people, I think what they do is include people in with detransitioners that aren't really detransitioners, in order for the regretful detransitioners to seem like a smaller percentage. There was a video by someone called Dr. Jamie Talks, I think it is. Dr. Jamie Talks LGBTQIA+ or some shit. Where I actually called it something like, is she skewing the data on transitioners? Detransitioners. The first group she described, I swear to God, it was like, that's not a detransitioner. That's someone who's desisting on their medical treatment, but is probably still socially transitioned in certain spaces, and still identifies, which, you know, you go by queer theory, gender theory, whatever we're using, like, that's still trans, isn't it? So how are they a detransitioner, you know? And like that Felix Fern, I remember calling himself a detransitioner. I don't see him as one. He's like someone who went from like trans man to like non-binary. Is that a detransition? I don't personally consider like non-binary trans, but people do. And I mean, he's changed a lot about his fucking... his body, you know, at that point. Like, there's been a transition of some kind. I'm not sure.
Later, the studies show that detransitioning is down at single percents. That's what the studies of detransitioners show.
The other thing is, I think it was Sam mentioned before about what is it? People who just stop coming back and people who just disappear. There's always going to be a problem with that. I don't know where they're measured in terms of detransition. You don't know how many people regret it and chose to end their lives instead of coming out as detransitioned out of pride or whatever. Desisters, yeah. So like, this is it's very difficult to ascertain like the actual true amount of detransitioners. And then even if you could, it's going to be entirely contentious, like who the detransitioners are. And it seems like there's a vested interest in making out that as many people as possible are detransitioners without it making look bad for the whole group, so that the regretful detransitioners are like the smaller one. The clients want to know and they try to avoid knowing. Yeah, potentially. I think there's a lot of suspicious things going on around the numbers when it comes to detransitioners. Like mid-level Nazis did about the Holocaust. That wouldn't surprise me. I don't want to compare the gender cult to the Nazis because I don't think that way. But yeah, there's something funny going on with the numbers that they cite for sure.
That's very low in terms of...
She seems like I'm remembering a bit more of the conversation I watched before with her, and she seems like a massive obfuscator to me.
Regret rates for surgery. Comparison would be hip or knee surgery.
It's this one. It's more people regret fucking knee surgery than regret trans surgery. Like, okay. I don't know how we're comparing the two, but sure. Kind of seems like... I think again, Sam said something about the regret is going to be a lot more immediate for knee surgery. And by the way, like, I presume they're comparing like successful surgeries. Would they what am I saying? Would they include botched surgeries in with that? Because that seems strange. Like, you think any botched surgery is going to have regret with it because it was botched. They aren't going to regret hip or knee surgeries 5 years later, are they? Yeah, exactly. Whereas a trans surgery, they might, well, who knows? You know, you start off as a kid and you get your mastectomy at 17 and then whatever else when you're in your early 20s. You've potentially completely sterilized yourself, and you know, you've got pretty much your whole life to potentially change your mind on whether that was the right call.
Has regret rates of between 20 and 30% because people end up with... And
this is such a stupid argument. Like, they will capture the botch type of regret, but not the changing their mind.
What the report says,
Yeah, because like if someone fucks up a surgery, then yeah, it's probably going to be regretful. Like, I would have thought they'd cut those out and look at just the successful ones, you know? But hey.
Looks at a study, and the people who wrote the study themselves question, they go, oh, this low single percent looks very low. The report quotes that, but what it does...
It feels very much like it's not so much like comparing apples to oranges, but like apples to beef or something. I don't know.
Doesn't do is quote 4 lines later when the investigators have looked at the reasons why that is low and say, there's no reason to doubt the figures.
But isn't it the case that we don't really have the data on detransitioners insofar as that a lot of them are those who are no longer in the doctor's books, and a lot of this data is drawn from the people who are still patients of those doctors?
No,
yeah, so I guess that would go into what you're saying about desisters, but Robin Moira White thinks otherwise. Let's see.
Books, and a lot of this data is drawn from the people who are still patients of those doctors.
No, there are some very recent, very well worked through studies, and every study comes out with very low numbers.
Can I ask you...
I mean, I don't like going straight to the studies, I guess, because you're always going to, like, you can get really bogged down and look at all the potential methodological errors and so on. Methodological errors. I'm not really. Yeah. You know, it's very easy to get bogged down and all that kind of shit. Like, we've got some studies that show that detransition is low. I mean, I don't know.
with your support of gender affirming care, I've looked through the WPATH standards of care, and it's very clear that a lot of it is driven by a notion of gender identity. Can you explain to me what is gender identity?
Well, I guess I'm old in that sense, and we've moved to gender incongruence is the phrase that
People still say gender identity. Gender identity and gender incongruence mean two different things. Gender incongruence means the same thing as gender dysphoria, which is what I say because I'm not this old, but I'm a little older.
Prefer these days.
Yes.
In a sense, in my view, when I was being treated, the standard was gender dysphoria. And dysphoria is a word that basically means discomfort.
Yes.
And from the age of 7 or 8, I was immensely uncomfortable.
So we're not talking about gender identity then. Like, gender identity is like this. That's what we kind of tend to base it on. Like, why do you think that trans women don't wear makeup anymore and don't bother with their voices? It's because they just identify as something. It's not about gender dysphoria. It's about identifying as something. And so it's like, well, this is a female voice and this is female manly stubble and these are female masculine features and shit like that. But I don't know. Like I said, she's a bit of an obfuscator from what I can tell.
With having to present to the world as male.
So it's a feeling, though, based on, you say presenting to the world as male. Is it based on stereotypes of gender, dressing a certain way, acting a certain way, being tough or rough and tumble or being feminine? What is it?
No, not at all.
There's no way it can ever be about that.
An essence of male or female.
An essence.
If you meet...
Yeah, what's an essence of male or female? Come on. Like, I don't know. Surely, that seems like a major blunder. Surely she's not going to be able to, like, give a satisfactory, like, definition of what an essence of male or female is. Unless she's going to say, like, I don't know, sperm and periods or some shit.
Me in the West Country, you'll most likely find me in jeans.
See, I don't like describing gender dysphoria because I just find it too difficult. I don't really know how I'm supposed to describe it. I don't think that I'm a woman. I think that I'm a male. I think that I'm a trans woman, which to me is a male, you know. So like, I don't really like even describing it. I don't know how I'd do so. And I don't know how I'd make it make sense. And I'd be too focused on making it make sense to actually think about being honest either. All you know is that psychiatrist felt it ticked a clinically significant distress box. Yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't know. The psychiatrist I saw, this was 2014, so this was like literally 10 years ago.
Gardening.
So it's not about the way you look.
No, it's not about a particular thing, but there is maleness and femaleness.
I mean,
So she hasn't described it at all. It's just there's maleness and femaleness. Well, what are those things? Like, how does a male have a female essence? Like, let's say I have a female essence and that's why I'm trans, and let's say this person does as well. What's the common factor? I think the only common factor really is like gender dysphoria, which is kind of like saying it is what it is. So we're kind of going round. No disrespect, but I would describe you as a male more heavily aligns with feminine personality of living. Yeah, I mean, listen, anyone can call me what they want. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm post-op and like taken hormones. I've gone through like the transition. So like I use trans woman mostly for that reason. But to me, a trans woman is a male necessarily. So I think you're so fucking good. Oh, thank you. I love you too.
Serious about this, Robin, because it's something I really want to understand. I looked at the WPATH definition of gender identity in the glossary. It says it refers to a person's deeply felt, internal, intrinsic sense of their own gender.
Yeah, so he's having to go back to answer the question because she completely sidestepped it. Which I guess if she's not... But then she's a... No. I tell you what, I'm not going to make excuses for her. She says she's like an oral, like, activist or whatever she said. She should know this kind of shit.
That sounds very much like a circular definition to me.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, if it's your own internal sense of gender, like, is it not something you kind of came up with? So is it not just calling yourself something at a certain point And then it's up to the rest of the world whether they agree with you. But if they don't agree with you, then you're going to call them a Nazi or something. I don't know. It's bizarre. Like, I want there to be like good explanations for this shit. I'm actually like, you know, it doesn't feel amazing to have been trans for 10 years, or 9 years, should I say, and then to suddenly start being like, none of this shit makes sense, does it? How am I supposed to actually like justify any of this shit? I can't. Fuck. You know what I mean? And I'd have thought that listening to someone that's older than me that has like experience as a whatever she said she was, I'd have thought that this person would bring something, but they don't seem to be. And this is the case for almost every like interview I see, like every TV debate. I think I've seen 2 people on these kind of TV debates specifically that did well. And, you know, one of them was fucking non-binary. She wasn't even trans. And that was mostly just because, like, when asked about the cast report, she didn't immediately soy out about ideological capture or some shit.
And I can't work out what they mean.
Well, it's a bit like colour to a blind man, because if...
Oh, it's not describable. It's like God. It's not disprovable. It's unfalsifiable. Interesting. So it comes down to a matter of opinion. So then, you know...
And you, fortunately, are one of those people whose sense of yourself matches the gender or the sex in which you...
I just don't buy this. I don't like the idea that gender identity exists in everyone and any cis person identifies as the same sex they were born with. I just don't think many people really think that way. I think that's something you have to be encouraged to think about in a way by watching TikTok or watching any one of the fucking people at the pulpits on their fucking YouTube fucking videos. Not this person. I think they're probably kind of cool, but I haven't seen them. Yeah, I don't think people just think about this kind of stuff. And I had that clip of Peter Tatchell, like at the IEA, because he was with Frida Wallace, like as a debate partner, saying about how, you know, I dress in these male clothes because I'm a man who identifies as a man. I don't think men dress a certain way because of their identity. I think that's just kind of how they're brought up. Like, initially what clothes get bought for them, and then later on what they decide they want, and what their taste is probably influenced by their family and influenced by like their male friends and stuff, if they're a male, for example. Like, I just don't think... I think the gender identity thing was invented to make sense of like non-binary, and then has been expanded out to everyone else, or trans as well, technically, and then expanded out to everyone else. So it's like, yeah, it just doesn't make sense to me. Maybe I'll get better words for that point one day.
You were born, and I
don't have a gender identity.
What is the point in the word gender if no one knows what it means? What's the point in any word if no one knows what it means, you know? I think probably to be able to obfuscate and be confusing and make all kinds of unfalsifiable claims about yourself that no one knows if it's true, but because your psychiatric institutions are all completely captured, you can get your shit, you know? I know that's extremely cynical, but it's difficult not to think that way a lot of the time. And this is the thing. When I listen to these kind of people, that pushes me more in that direction. If these trans people are actually answering questions and giving decent replies, then I wouldn't feel that way, you know? But then I'm supposed to think that people like fucking Jammy Dodger and whoever the fuck else, Philosophy Tube, are these like geniuses, like fucking nailing the transphobes to the wall with their superior intellect, but they both sound like idiots to me. I'm sorry. Like, people talk about fucking Jammy Dodger having a fucking PhD. That doesn't make anyone smart. That means that you were good at the fucking coursework or whatever. That means that you did what they asked you to do and got the qualification. And like, Philosophy Tube is like even less, she says even less than this person does. Like, I don't know why I'm supposed to look up to these people, but people get offended if I don't, apparently. So I don't know, keep the hate comments coming. I love it.
I am just male.
Well, for you, those things match. For me, they didn't match. And for trans people, they don't match.
I just don't, that's not a good enough explanation to me. My gender identity doesn't match. I don't know. Like, my main problem is I'm intelligent. Yeah. I don't know whether it's more of a blessing or a curse a lot of the time. But then, I don't know, I think most of the reason I'm still here is because I'm intelligent. I don't have this sounds like self-deprecation. I don't mean it in that way. I don't have a huge amount else going for me when it comes to like careers and stuff, so I've kind of had to rely on it. But yeah.
So, but are you not concerned, Robin Mo? I mean, you had a very good experience, and I completely respect that and accept that.
Here's the thing, I had a good experience as well. I don't really have any complaints. I mean, like, I don't know if what I have down there is the most normal looking version compared to your average woman, but like vaginas come in all shapes and sizes anyway.
But there are an awful lot of people who haven't had a very good experience, and there's a lot of whistleblowers coming out saying, you know, from the Tavistock and places like that, people who are working within the system, saying it has to change.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, the ones that get like, it seems like when I talk about more popular creators, it tends to get more views, but then it also gets their fans kind of coming over and like spewing crap at me. But I don't give a shit. Like I knew what I was signing up for doing this. So, but yeah, I appreciate that, man.
So shouldn't we at least be having a conversation about whether gender...
Yeah, why can't we even talk about like the detransition stuff? It's just obfuscation while this research says that the detransition rates are low or the regret rates are low.
Affirming care is the right way to go.
Absolutely, a conversation is fine, but...
Yeah, but can't we have a conversation? It's almost the end of the conversation, and you're the only pro-trans person here.
We have to... I'm a scientist who became a lawyer, so I love evidence, all right?
Yikes. That's terrifying. That is a terrifying sentence I just heard.
Evidence is the right way forward.
Yeah, the evidence that you pick out to use as your trump cards.
And back to the studies we were talking about.
Yeah, that's studies again, Jesus.
And they consistently come out with very, very low levels of regret. And you're absolutely right.
Yeah, how many detransitioners has this person spoken to? Like someone like Philosophy Tube or like Samantha Lux or something. How many detransitioners have these people spoken to? I watched that thing on The Line the other day, like two trans women basically bullying up on someone. And that they throw out the same shit. It's like, what detransitioners are they talking to? I very much doubt very many. Because they all talk to like Blair White and like Buck Angel, because they're the only trans people that give these people any credence. Like, for me, I watch stuff about detransitioners from both sides. Like, I'm pretty much planning to just occasionally go through a whole bunch of stuff every now and then and just have a bunch of long-ass videos just exploring as much as I can, you know? Because I think it's important that they're heard, even if I'm someone that was happy with my transition, you know?
We should continue to follow people through the process. We should see how that works. And for those people who end up in a position of regret, that's awful for them. But what you don't do in the hip replacement example...
It's awful for them.
...is because 20% of people come out of a hip replacement with a bad experience, you don't say the other...
Would you not say a hip replacement is a lot more medically necessary than giving a man a fanny?
The 80% shouldn't have the hip replacement.
Is that what people are saying? I don't know. I wish Rose of Dawn would make videos again. I wasn't a fan of Rose of Dawn back in the day, but I was a lot more soy when I remember her being around. I did watch something. I think it was Benjamin Butterworth complaining about that Robert Galbraith book, the one that had a book that had a transvestite that was a murderer or something that he hadn't even read, and he was complaining about it. And then it was just someone else, Piers Morgan, and then Rose of Dawn, and then George Galloway, just all three of them just like shitting on him constantly. It was funny.
Okay, well, Robin, I would love to be able to talk to you about this much more. We are running out of time. Just very finally, this idea of evidence-based, I think we all agree that scientific procedures should be evidence-based.
That's what's crazy is like you hear people saying evidence-based, but that's like the language of like the cast review as well.
But if that is based on what you describe as an essence of maleness or an essence of
yeah, she's voiced a concept that you can't give evidence for because it's unfalsifiable. Like, that's not evidence-based. That's the complete opposite of that. Laurel. Do you mean Laurel Hubbard, the weightlifter?
Femaleness. It sounds like a soul. It sounds something metaphysical to me. How is that compatible with a...
Yeah, he's right. Like, she wants evidence-based stuff, but then is talking about it like it's religion. Laurel. I don't think I do know. My daughter's transitioned while in education. Continue that education. PhD in being trans. I thought he was a PhD in psychology or something, which is kind of funny because then you can say, well, does Jordan Peterson have like a authority on this subject as well? At a time when academia was so ideologically captured, everything was being affirmed. I mean, that makes sense, yeah. I don't know much about his personal life. All I know is that I'm not going to automatically respect someone because they have a degree. Like, I have a degree in music technology. You know, does that make me an expert in anything, really? I don't know.
A medical procedure?
Well, almost all psychological positions depend on interviewing somebody.
And, like, the thing is, when I see so many, like, medical professionals who are clearly, like, captured as fuck, that are, like, psychiatrists and, like, work with, like, young people and stuff, that makes me think that these degrees and stuff that these people get, like, they really don't mean much if these people are not going to tell the truth anyway, or if they're going to, you know, push certain attitudes that are really unhelpful and, like, quite bigoted, actually, you know, and, like, entitled.
Finding out how they feel about themselves, how they interact with the world around them. We don't yet have some form of laser that can look in.
Oh, we don't have a good definition yet. Okay, that's great. So we're going with, I identify as a woman, therefore I am one. It doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't know. Would you want to push forward with treatment if it's this difficult to determine who's trans? That's before we get into the whole thing with kids, you know, like, you know, that's a much more complicated thing. And yet we want to push forward as much possible with kids as well. Like, I'm like, no, no, I think we should maybe, like, be careful here, you know. But a lot of these people are very gung-ho when it comes to other people's kids and they don't have their own. So, hey, you can read into that whatever you want. Meeps Music, hi, I'm doing very great. I hope you are too. It is too hot in here, though. I wish it was a bit cooler.
Into your brain and say, you know, is this how it is? We have to listen.
Yeah, the thing is, these people don't want there to be. A, because it makes it falsifiable, but more importantly, because someone could decide they're trans, get the brain scan, and be told, no, you're not trans. You can't have the transition stuff. And that would not be cool. He's a detransitioner. I'll have to look into him. I tend to just kind of find a lot of different stuff and watch it in one go. But yeah, I'll have to look into him. There's a lot of detransitioners on YouTube. I mean, hey, no one listens to them apart from, like, right-wingers, so I'm not surprised there's a lot of them. Because that's the same way I feel. No one listens to me because I'm a trans person with a different perspective to most trans people. So it's like, well, if people are just going to treat me like shit every time I try and talk about anything, then yeah, I'm going to start a fucking stream and do it that way. You know what I mean? And people don't realize how they push people further into opposing what they're about. It's nuts. But hey.
To people and understand.
Yeah, she wasn't saying that brain scans are a thing. She's saying that there isn't some way of just scanning someone and knowing that they're trans. But, like, the brain scan is like, hot by a fan, maybe? I have limited power in this room. In fact, I have no power in this room. I'm running everything out of the living room behind me. So I very much have to minimize the amount of power sockets I'm using. Otherwise, I'd do that.
Understand how they are.
Oh, and the other thing is, it'd blow my hair. The other thing is that it would blow my hair around. I'm so sorry if that was loud. Let me just check that it's gonna stay. All right, apologies.
And who they say they are.
Robin Moira White, thank you so much for joining me. Really appreciate it.
Hold up, I want to get the very last bit.
And how, you know, is this how it is? We have to listen to people and understand how they are and who they say they are.
So we have to understand who people say they are. So they're saying they're this, therefore they're this. Great. Okay, there we go. Robin Moira White. I think she's a bit of an obfuscator and a bit of a rambler, and I think this isn't helping my impression that we don't want people to understand and we want it to be this weird esoteric thing that doesn't make any sense, and that's fine, but it's supposed to be this, like, rights issue. Like, how can it be a rights issue if no one even knows what the fuck we are, you know? But anyway, there we go. Robin Moira White.